This is the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game.
Rule number one is you have to believe in yourself. You're the only one who doesn't think you belong in this appointment. The prospect has already validated your existence by scheduling time with you. Get it through your head you belong here, go in there, crush it, and close the deal.
A place where sales professionals can come to learn from other sales professionals and thought leaders that have mastered their craft.
The difference between a good salesperson and a best-in-class salesperson is only 2 minutes. By spending an extra 2 minutes on what you might think is a mundane task in the sales game, you separate yourselves from the pack, you grow your book of business, you close more deals, and you retain your accounts.
As well as their peers who are still striving for perfection to achieve their why.
I have a wife and 4 kids. Failure is not an option.
Real sales professionals, real stories, real results. Are you ready to feel the power?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. Today we have got a super dynamic guest with an incredible background that has absolutely nothing to do with insurance, which is why you guys are probably going to love Mr. Howie Zales. Howie, what's going on, man?
Hey, grateful to be here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I was really intrigued when I started looking at your story and sort of some of what your background is. So before we get into the weeds of talking about, you know, what you do and sort of what you've done during COVID to pivot and everything, why don't you sort of give everybody the 10,000-foot overview of who you are and what your background is?
Yeah, sure. I'm a professional camera operator. I don't do it anymore. I recently just retired. I'm doing network level sports and entertainment events. So I've done Super Bowls, Olympics, football games, you name it. It's a sport. It's been on TV. I've probably shot it. And I also traveled the world with the World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE, as a camera operator backstage as well.
Dream job. What years was that?
2000 through last year.
If you would have said any date in the 1980s, you would have been my new hero. Like 80s, early 90s. Like those are my. That was wrestling to me.
The heyday.
You know. But
yeah.
I do have to ask you, man. I don't want to interrupt you in the middle of what you were talking about, but I got to know, if you were operating on the sidelines of that many major sporting events, you got to tell us, what's the worst hit you ever took?
I got 3 good stories for you. The first one.
Let's go.
The first one was not on a football field. It was a baseball game. I was doing the camera on the third base side at Shea Stadium where the Mets used to play. And there was a runner on second base, and it was a right-handed batter. So that meant my responsibility during that situation was to shoot the runner on second, because he was the lead runner, and watch the pitch, right? So I'm like this. The next thing I know, I wake up in the hospital. I got a line drive right here.
Ooh.
I still have a bump.
My goodness.
And Joe McCune from the Mets went out in front of the pitch because it was an off-speed pitch, and
just
pulled
it down the third baseline.
Yep.
Worst ever.
And I fell after I got hit in the head. I fell 7 feet into the dugout because your field level, camera's field level, right? So I went like up and over a chain that was behind me into the dugout. And the funny part of the story, you know, I'm okay now, obviously, right? A bad concussion. But the funny part of the story is I was working for ESPN, and there was the home feed and the away feed going on simultaneously. So they they use my camera because when I got hit, it kind of jerked the camera to the pitcher's mound. Meanwhile, they're working on me because they think I'm dead in the dugout. The pitcher is walking around the pitcher's mound, and they take my camera 3 times because they're just, you know, play is stopped, right? And on the 4th time, the pitcher walks off the mound onto the grass, and I don't pan with him because I'm 5 feet below. And I'm getting yelled at, you know, pan, and then finally it reaches our TV truck that it was me that it was hit.
Jeez.
And listen, I'm an ex-baseball player, so I understand the deadening sound of a line drive hitting somebody's head. It's like one of the worst things you could ever hear.
They said another inch over would have killed me on the spot because as you get closer to the center, it gets softer.
Well, and I mean, it's crazy because obviously I go to baseball games now, and I look at it from a different lens, considering the fact we're in insurance and risk management for a living, and the fact that they put those nets up is a huge deal, man. Like the average fan does not really understand the speed at which the game is actually.
Dude,
played.
I mean, like think about the ball coming at the batter, 95, 100 miles per hour, and then coming off the bat. Like, I mean, that's crazy.
Like 115, 120 miles an hour. When I played, we didn't even measure that stuff. Right? Like, we didn't even know how fast it was. But, I mean, it's crazy. I don't know what they can do to fix that problem. Because, look how many pitchers have gotten drilled in the recent past. And it's not like we're using, these super juiced aluminum bats or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a problem. They've done the same thing in hockey with the fans. They put nets almost around the entire arena to keep it safe.
Well, I remember when the Lightning came here to Tampa originally, I had season tickets. The very first year they were here, they played out at the Fairgrounds, which is a much smaller venue, obviously, than what Amalie Arena is now. And, I mean, there were no nets. Like, it didn't matter where you were. There were no nets. And, I mean, I watched a dude take a puck right between the eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And he may have died from it, man. I mean, we were, like, probably 15, 20 rows up.
What building was that at the fairgrounds?
Out at the fairgrounds, man. That big multi-purpose center where, like, the high school graduations and stuff are now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, but Rob Zaminer from the Lightning, who had an absolute wicked slap shot, like, just insane. Like, when you played...
He's no stammer.
When you played on Sega Genesis, you wanted Zaminer to wind up and just drill it when you got the one-timer. And he did. I watched him do it in real life. I never saw the puck. It hit a guy like 2 rows up, 3 guys down from me, and it could have hit me, and I wouldn't even have seen it coming.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, so we got the first one out of the way. What's number 2?
The other 2 are
worse than that.
The other 2 are football related. I was on the sideline at Notre Dame, and there was a punt, and the ball went to the other side of the field, and I kind of just went with the ball and the camera, right? But the ball went to the other side of the field. Next thing I know, I'm in the hospital again. I got two guys were like grappling each other going down the field, not even anywhere near the ball, and went out of bounds. And I was shooting this way because the ball went that way, and they came this way. And I was supposed to have a utility behind me to protect me, to get me out of the way. But I found out later that he was taking pictures with his camera phone instead of protecting me because it hit my blind side. Thankfully, the camera was there. It kind of absorbed a lot of the blow, but I still ended up breaking my tailbone and having a pretty major concussion.
Oh, my God, man.
Yeah.
Okay,
and I don't even remember where the third one... The third
Yeah.
one happened at an NFL sideline somewhere. I really have no idea where.
How do you remember
see
anything
that stuff,
at this
man.
point?
Yeah, you see all that stuff like the sideline ones are the worst. And
Yeah.
It's always,
Oh, yeah.
And this is not directed at you because you're not an older or overweight person, right? But
No.
It seems like it's always the fat old man on the sidelines that gets hit right at the
Yeah.
kneecaps. Like at the kneecaps.
And you know, from how I always shoot on the sideline, so I always shoot in the kneeling position, and you're always taught, or when I learned, you were taught to commit to a direction, right? If they're coming at you, you go to a direction. You never go back, because if you go backwards, they're just gonna go right into you, right? So if you pick a direction or stay low, you have a really good chance of not getting hit, because then they're gonna go to the other direction, hopefully. But it hurts.
I'm sitting here thinking to myself, how awesome would it be if like there was a guy that was just jacked as a photographer on the sideline, and he gets the hot feet and he sees somebody coming and gets the hot feet going like Terry Tate and just lays down, and when the running back or whoever has the ball comes, dude just meets him and stands him up on the sidelines. Just throws the camera to the side and stands
It's probably
him up.
happened.
I was doing the Belmont Stakes in New York a few years ago, and I operate a wireless camera, and we always get a security guard. And the security guard I had was a professional. She played in the women's professional football league, and someone came at me like way too close. She like lowered her shoulder and like flipped this guy up and over. I was like, oh my God. But
that's amazing.
This woman totally took this guy out.
Yeah, it's insane. And the problem is, you know, if you're taking pictures, you can't be looking left, right, whatever.
Well, no, you're in the zone. Like you're focused on your task, man. You got no idea what else is going on around.
Like even the guys in the bullpen have the bat boy or the ball boy or whatever, or you know, one of the other relievers stands out there with a glove to protect whoever's warming up.
And you probably can't really hear too much of what's going on because a lot of times you got headphones in or something.
Well, we hear the announcers and we hear the director, and I always shoot with. I always used to shoot with my left eye open, so I could see, and that's something that it's a safety thing that you just learn to do.
That's interesting.
Just in case, yeah. Because and it's also keeps you like if you lose the play or whatever, you keep your eye open. You know what's going on.
Makes sense.
So after hearing that, it's probably a good thing that you're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, my back is definitely, I have shot with a handheld camera for over 20 years, so I'm good.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So talk about how so we interrupted you to hear your 3 stories in the middle of you sort of giving your background. Wrap that up and let's get into what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I spent, over 20 years shooting professional sports and entertainment, and simultaneous to that, I always had a company on the side, a hiring company, where we would hire the same type of people, TV crews for sports and entertainment events in the New York area. So companies would call us and we put crews together for hockey games, baseball games, you name it, whatever was going on. And, over the course of the years, we kind of expanded. We hired a person. We expand a little more. Then we started signing some union contracts in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area. And we ended up signing contracts all around the United States where we can employ TV crews for different types of sporting and entertainment events nationwide. Then March 11th, 2020, right?
What's the significance of that date?
Yeah,
everything stopped, right?
Yeah, because are you based in New York now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine, man. I mean, and what's crazy is, look, political comments and everything aside, Florida's not open. Like, we're still not completely open, right? Mm. But I think that's the wrap that we got.
Depends on where you go.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not. But I'm going. Even if you go back to March, we were every bit as locked down as everybody else in the country was.
For sure.
I think DeSantis is getting a bad rap from the press for a lot of stuff, and most of it's from people who aren't here. But when people come down and visit, even. They're like, wow, you guys still have to wear masks here or there or whatever. Like even, when they just started opening restaurants back up at half capacity
right,
and all of that stuff. But we had to change, man. We had to change literally everything we were doing. Imagine having a business where, and I'm sure you're imagining this because you lived it, but we go into other people's businesses to call on them, to generate new business opportunities, to meet with them, to get them to hire us, and now all of a sudden that's taken away. Boom.
Yeah.
Rug pulled right out from under you.
And our business was unique in the sense that everything was shut down. So we had people willing to work, obviously, right? But there was no sports. There was no entertainment. All the buildings and the arenas were shut down. And then when the leagues kind of reopened for a little bit in the summer, they went into those bubble situations. So it was a very small population of the television community that was even allowed to work, and you had to go somewhere for a month and a half and isolate. So it was a bad. Although there was some sports on TV, it wasn't a good situation. And then fast forward to this past year. Whenever there's normal times, whenever there's a TV show or a sports television show going on, there's always 2 crews, a home show and an away show, and it's 2 independent broadcasts going on simultaneously. But during COVID, when it's last year, there was only 1 broadcast, and the away team took the feed of the home team's broadcast, and their announcers just kind of called the game from back wherever the announcers were from. So that was even half the amount of people working. And, it put a huge strain on the industry, like many others.
So how did you battle through that?
So as a company, we had to make a decision. How are we going to make money when there was legitimately, it was all like everything was taken away. So we got into, I did a lot of research, and we got into live streaming. And but I knew if we were going to commit to this, we needed to do it in a professional way. How are we going to help clients that still needed to get their content out there? How are we going to get it done in a way where it would be professional, the quality would be as if it could air on broadcast television? So we did a lot of research. We put a team of people together, and we had help from people that are way smarter than I am. And a client called one day and said, listen, we want to interview 9 baseball players in 9 weeks in 9 separate cities, but the interviewer cannot leave her house. How can we do that? And I'm like, oh, we can totally do that. I had no idea how we were going to do it, but
now we figured it out. My language. Yeah, that's how I operate.
We figured it out, and we, one job became another job, and it just snowballed.
Huh. Okay.
We ended up creating these computer kits with high-end laptops, microphones, cameras, ring lights, Ethernet cables, computer stands to bring the computer up so the camera would be eye level. And we'd ship these computers out, and through the software we're using, vMix, we were able to create these high-quality broadcasts for our clients and our clients' clients, and they were still able to get, their content out there. We were able to work with, people like Charles Barkley, Magic Johnson, Michael Phelps, Tiger Woods, big name celebrities were able to still appear on shows because of the, productions that we were involved with.
That's pretty cool. I know that one thing, it's changed a lot. I mean, we were talking about this right before we went on to start recording this, about how we're looking at doing live stream now, just when we record the podcast. I don't know how many people would actually watch it versus who would watch the...
like 4.
The recorded version. Because, I mean, the majority of our people are listening on iTunes or Spotify or whatever. But we do get some people who watch on YouTube. But I think it's a big differentiator, man. I don't know of anybody else in our space, anyhow, that's doing that. And, I mean, it seems like there has been just a ton of change in how you can do live stream over the course of the last year or two. Talk about that for a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, the technology was a few years away, right? And it just kind of got sped up overnight, especially in the professional world. But for the person doing it at home from there's a lot of different types of software out there. Some are more prosumer than others. Some are professional types of software. But you can I live stream my podcast weekly from my house using professional software, and we have a content delivery network, a CDN, where all of our shows live, and we actually create and house content for clients and direct these players to their web experience. So it doesn't look like it's airing on YouTube or Vimeo. It's a private labeled player and web experience that we create for our clients. So that's how we do our show as well.
Do you think that live streaming is going to continue to gain traction at this point? Because, I mean, I look at it this way. This general medium, just the concept of it, has been around forever, right? It's not like live streaming is just a new buzzword for an old thing. And where I'm going with this is I can remember when I was a kid that if you had the ability, you could start your own public access TV show. Like that's the whole premise of Wayne's World, man, was they had their own public access show. But we had a massive public access presence here in Tampa. It was all over the place. And
who were we just talking about this with? Was it just maybe it was just me and you?
I think it was me and you talking
on the way out to Orlando.
It was, yeah. We were talking on the way over to Orlando, but I mean, it was like a big deal. And the thing was, there wasn't the restrictions that you have to go on regular TV. Like, it was a free-for-all, man. I'm not even going to candy coat it. You better know what you were tuning into before you turned the channel on, or Grandma might get embarrassed by what was on the screen. But, I mean, it was an interesting play because what it brought up was a ton of First Amendment arguments and everything else, because, of course, you had people trying to squash it, people who were trying to support it. But the bottom line is people were trying to get their point of view out, their content out to their perceived audience at that time. That's not changed at all, man. It's just a different medium in which you're delivering that same concept. The difference being we have data and analytics now that can help us make intelligent decisions as to how we're going to do this, when we're going to do it, who we're going to do it for, what mediums you're going to stream to, and all of that. So I think it's morphed, but I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I and it's just kind of it's the same comparison as like the streaming services and network television, right? Streaming services has overcome network television. Live streaming is the use of live stream to get content out there is totally taking over how people are getting their content out there, because you can't rely on the social media platforms to distribute your content because the algorithms constantly change. But if you create a live stream through a CDN to a web experience and you get that to your following, that's the way to do it. That's what we help our clients with is that's how we help our clients get their message out there, is through the web experience to their followers, getting their followers from the platforms to the web experience.
Got it. So the big thing is, if you're streaming to Facebook, your goal is not necessarily for them to stay on Facebook.
No, you want to take them off.
Completely different.
Yeah, yeah.
And why do you want to do that?
Because the algorithms are constantly changing. So your followers on Facebook might not be seeing your content. Facebook
also changed. I remember 10 years ago, no matter what you posted, it was seen by 100% of everybody, specifically if you had a business page, right? And then everybody moved from having a business page to having a business group, because groups had a different algorithm and more posts and things began to show up there. But, a Facebook business page, unless you're paying money to advertise with them, boost posts and everything else, is essentially a worthless repository.
Yeah, it's a waste of money. So if you and it's the same thing with if you stream to YouTube, right? YouTube puts ads on there that you may or may not want to be associated with.
It might be your competitor.
Right. And then afterwards, it goes to another video that may not be yours. So if you have your own, content network and web experience, you control everything. You control who the advertisements are, or who they aren't, and what videos play in what order. And that's what exactly what your question was, is where's live stream going? Is that's what we're doing for our clients, is we're creating TV networks on the web.
I was going to say, you're essentially your own TV channel on the internet.
Yeah, basically.
At that point.
Yep.
So let's dial it back for a couple of seconds, because we're dealing with a lot of people that are like me. We're all big dumb animals. We don't necessarily know, what we need. If you were just getting started out, understanding that you have one piece of equipment that's probably worth more than everything I own combined in terms of video equipment, right? It's funny. I've got a good friend, Kyle knows him too, that was a photographer for Sports Illustrated and several other things. And I was featured in Independent Agent magazine this last month, and in order for them to put me on the cover, they obviously had to take pictures. And so we had a live event, and I just said, look, this is going to actually work out perfectly. I've got a live event that I'm speaking at. You can get some action shots, people in the room, and then we rented out the Florida Aquarium that night, had a reception, and I said, you guys can get pictures of us mingling and all of the other people that are there and everything else. What I didn't realize when I made that offer was I was going to live with a cameraman and his guy that ran around with the strobe
following you around the whole night.
Yes.
Dude, and he was a total animal too. He was making it happen.
He was, my goodness, yeah. This guy was aggressive. Like you had the people that were already about 4 to 5 drinks into the evening at the aquarium trying to photobomb. He wasn't having it. He wasn't having it at all. No. And so I realized very quickly, Doug said, you really hired a good photographer for this event. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, man, that strobe alone that guy has is probably $15,000 or $20,000. I'm like, well, I didn't hire this guy.
Right.
he's from the magazine. That's why he has that. If I would have hired that guy, he would have been having a guy running around with his cell phone flashlight, highlighting the subject while he's going to take a picture. So it led me, camera equipment is interesting. I'm not even going to tell you like I'm novice level. We obviously have the podcast. I record a ton of stuff in terms of YouTube content, and I've got an online learning ecosystem where we have a training program, and so I use it for that. But man, you could rack up a bill in a hurry if you allow yourself to. So practical advice, if we've got people listening to this, which everybody should be looking at getting into video, what are the must-haves? What do they need to start with?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit different, right? Because I'm from the broadcast industry. So I do have a very expensive camera that's shooting me. I have a Canon C500. You don't need that big of a camera or a camera with a prime lens. But any DSLR type camera would work. You can also use, Razer makes a really great webcam that you can change the focus with. You can change the color temperature with. That works great. PTZ Optics makes a really good camera, a huddle cam. You need a good microphone. I have the Shure microphone, but the Yeti Blue right here is another good microphone that plugs into your computer via USB.
We're equally aligned, man. You got a Yeti, and I've got an SM7B. So
yeah, I use the Shure. I have the Shure right here on an arm, but I have we have 25 Yeti Blues, and then some lights. I have 1, 2, 3 lights. Traditional television lighting is 3-point light. You want a key, a fill, and a backlight. So I have a light on either side of my camera and a light above me for my head and my shoulders. And then I have 2 lights on the floor shooting up on the background to give it some color.
What do you think about natural light blasting off your windowsill into your face?
I was going to say, I bet he hates your guts right now, man.
Yeah,
you were the absolute worst, and I'm probably not much better because I actually made an attempt to have some level of lighting. And
yeah, I can't even.
That's the whole thing, man. My friends that are photographers and stuff. He is sitting here telling us all of this. I see the cord to a light coming down behind my shoulder over there, and whatever. It is what it is. We warned Howie ahead of time what he was getting into.
So kind of along those lines, though, what are some common mistakes you see? Is it lighting? Because that seems like an easy, obvious one to me.
Lighting and sound. Lighting and sound, yeah. People showing up with the AirPods, right, for a headset and microphone. Huge mistake. We don't even allow that on shows that we're a part of. When we do real broadcast shows, no way.
So what's interesting about that you bring that up is I see some stuff on SportsCenter where whoever they're interviewing, they're just sitting there with their iPhone cords hanging down, and it's you would think that somebody like ESPN would have this a little bit more locked down, but I don't know.
Yeah, I have an earpiece or an IFB, kind of like what the news uses, and it goes behind your ear. And it just fits in my ear. You can't even see it. And that's what we send out with our equipment. We'll send headsets like Sony headsets just in case as a backup should that break. But we try to make it look as professional and as clean as possible.
I had no idea you were wearing an earpiece, man.
Oh, really? No.
Yeah. We couldn't see it until you just showed us.
Yeah, there you go.
We couldn't see it. Yeah. I think that I can't speak for the majority, but I think that podcasters in general just think it's pretty, it's cool that they wear headphones, right? You're not an official podcaster if you're not wearing these over-the-ear headphones. I'd much rather wear the earpiece.
Yeah, the earpiece is way better.
That's insane. So, what about the live streaming piece? What about tips around that? If somebody wanted to set that up, and I'm not asking for your secret sauce. You got a business, man. So if anybody wants to do this stuff, they can reach out to you and have you, and talk to you about it. But if I wanted to go and set up my own internet channel, where do I start?
Yeah, you need a good computer, right? You need a computer that can handle the processing of a camera, mic audio, and simultaneously record and or stream it live. A lot of computers can't handle doing everything together, and you also need the internet speed to support the stream. A lot of people are concerned about their download speed for like Netflix and the streaming companies, but when you're live streaming, you need to be concerned with the upload speed. If you don't have a minimum of 10 to 20 upload speed, there's no way you're going to be able to live stream from the location you're at. So that's like a number one priority. I have a gig both ways when I'm plugged in. And so that's number one. Number two is your computer, right? Number three is your camera and your audio and your lighting. And you just need to rehearse and practice just showing up 2 minutes before the live stream is supposed to start and hitting go or stream. You can't do it that way. We rehearse. We make sure that our live stream settings are correct, whether it's the stream key and URL. That's how I come from a background of rehearse.
Yeah, that was the other thing about having that photographer take all those pictures was like, I've never seen. We were talking about it actually. The old days when you used to have actual rolls of film you had to change out. This guy's got like an AR-15 with a bump fire stock on it, the way just taking pictures and like every little micro movement or whatever else.
Right.
It's mind numbing.
It's overwhelming.
If you're the person that's going through that, you really, you got to be prepared for it. Like nobody prepared me. That's what I was going to be dealing with. I had just gotten done with doing an in-person boot camp for 8 hours straight on how to sell commercial insurance. Right. The last thing I wanted to do was be standing in a room with somebody saying, "Nope, an eighth of an inch to the right. Now tilt your head a little bit this way." But and I knew the only warning that I had, and it was only because I knew that I recognized I was probably in trouble at this point, is when he told me to go to the bathroom and take a damp towel, wipe my face off, and then blot it to get rid of the shine because they were going to have to come in and get and put some makeup
shiny ass forehead.
Yeah, and put some powdered makeup on me, and I'm like, oh wow, this is the real deal at this point. This isn't point and click with the iPhone anymore.
No.
It took us like 30 or 40 minutes to get just the one shot that they wanted for the cover, and that was in a controlled environment where. That
was after everything. Is when that picture got taken?
Yeah, we finished the boot camp, and I went to a side room. They had set up in another room a mini studio in there. And so they whisked me off to the side to go do that, and then I came out when it was over, and then that's when I ended up running. I went back up to the room and changed and went to the aquarium. But preparation's key, man. I think that there's a lot to be learned from that. We're not. And I'd be the first one to tell you. I told Kyle, as we move into the first part of this year, we need to get better at preparing instead of just gripping and ripping. We have a lot of good conversations, but quite frankly, we have a lot of wasted time too, just BSing back and forth or whatever else. And, at the end of the day, that's fun and people can learn about our families and, it creates a bond. It's always a wild thing when I talk to somebody on the phone and like, oh my gosh, you're the same person in person as you are on your podcast. I'm like, well, yeah, because I'm not smart enough to be one person, let alone two people. I can't be a different guy, but I think that we owe it to the people that are tuning in, and we owe it to anybody who chooses to sponsor us or whatever to make sure that we're delivering the absolute best product we can, and that's one of our goals as we jump into 2022 is just to have better preparation on the front end.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you an example, an hour before we sat down to do the show, my podcast studio is downstairs. I came down, I turned my lights on, I turned the camera on, I turned the computer on, I made sure everything was hooked up and ready to go. So at 11 o'clock, I could just click on the link. I don't leave things like that to chance.
Yeah,
right.
Well, it's no different than preparing for an appointment.
Right.
We do the same thing, or should be doing the same thing for clients that prospects that we go out and meet with, kind of running through everything, running through what kind of questions we have, things that we need to touch on, and, how we can audible if curveballs get thrown our way. So 100%.
Yeah, I just think it's different. I think we look at it differently when we're going on an appointment because there's immediate gratification from that appointment, right? You go in, you're on your A game, you close the deal, you're getting paid. We're batch recording podcasts sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a day, and we're not going to know for 2 months whether or not it was successful. We were joking about it originally. We'll have somebody on that we think is an absolute tool, like just droning on about senseless stuff, and we publish 100% of who we have on, but we're just bored out of our minds, and we're like, oh, that's going to be terrible, and it's always the best one, like has more downloads. I get emails from people and everything else, and then we'll have one we think's an absolute banger, and it's terrible.
Maybe we suck. Maybe we're the tools.
It might be, man. That may be it. So anyhow, so talk a little bit about one of the questions that I wanted to ask is, and we're going in a completely different direction here.
Sure.
But why should we follow our gut? I'm a big believer in following your gut in business. 100%. Like anybody who knows me will know. If I get a gut instinct on something, boom, I'm going to go after it, and I'm going to go after it with reckless abandon. Now, I may cut bait 2 weeks later if I realize, okay, this was not what I wanted to do. But I do think that one thing I am really, really good at is seeing opportunity. And it's not something that I necessarily was trained or coached on. I just think it was a trait that I possess, where I can look at something and I can say, you know what, I can make money off of that. Or I could really drive change over here. And in my mind, I'm immediately like, there is no warm-up period for me, Howie. Like if I had an opportunity present itself to me right now, I would be 1,000 miles an hour going at that shiny object right now. And it's also a detriment because there's a lot of other things that get neglected when I get distracted by something like that. But I don't miss opportunities, and maybe 1 or 2 out of 10 actually work out, but they work out in such a way that it makes up for all the things that I missed. So I haven't really been burnt bad by trusting my gut. I just have to be very cognizant of when I need to stop doing something too.
Right.
So it's an interesting question because, I mean, with you having multiple businesses at this point and being in a position where you have a very unique skill set, how do you trust your gut?
Yeah, so great question. So I trust my gut, and there's several examples throughout my career. The first one, I was always scared to hire an employee. It was just me, but I knew that I was making mistakes. I was working through the night trying to do payroll and things like that, and I was like, you know what? I've got to trust my gut and go with it and hire someone because I'm like being pulled down. So I hired Lori, and it was the best decision I made. I can't even tell you, a month after we hired her, we started scaling and the business grew tremendously just because so much was taken off my plate and I didn't have to be doing every little thing, especially on the business side of the business. And then I had the opportunity to go to a mastermind in California, and being from New York, I wasn't sure if I wanted to travel out there, and I had plans. I had plans for the weekend of the mastermind, and plans kind of fell through right before. And I said, you know what? I really should be doing this. I got to trust my gut. I got to pay the money and go out to this thing. And it was one of the best decisions I made because I met. I already knew Steve Eckhart, who was the owner of the gym I went to, and he introduced me to Bedros Keuilian, who's the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp, and I went to another mastermind of theirs, and then I became a coaching client of Bedros, which was another instance of trusting my gut to spend a lot of money to hire a business coach, because it just kind of broadened and opened my horizons on what I was capable of, doing. Things I never even thought of, like writing a book, starting a course, opening up a second, third business. And then another last example is trusting my gut is our company, my first company, HJZ Productions, was hired to put the crew together for the West Point graduation during COVID. Mind you, there's been no other remote TV broadcasts up until this point. And
no precision required when you're doing anything at all for West Point. They
Right.
prefer you to operate sloppily, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And this was going to be the first broadcast since COVID shut everything down. And we hired everyone from the producer to the director. And the director said, I need to have my technical director, the person that pushes the buttons when the director says, take camera 1, take camera 2. And he's like, I need to have my guy there. And he had an 818 area code. So to me, that meant he lived in California. I was like, no, I said, I got so many guys that have been sitting home for 3 months that could use the work. He said, I need to have my person there. And I said, okay, you know what? My gut's telling me just go with what Patrick wants. So I hired Jamie. I trusted my gut. Jamie became not only one of my, my business partner, but one of my, close friends. We've collaborated a ton on live streaming projects, and it's just, he's way smarter than I am. So it's just, associating with someone that's smarter than you, and it's just, brought me to another level.
Nice.
So you mentioned both a book and a course. Do you have those things right now? You
Yes.
Expanded out and created it. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have a course and a book that's associated with getting into the broadcast sports industry for young people that are either not going to college or just went to college for television and kind of don't know the path. So we give them the tools to give them the proper training on getting into the television sports industry. And we wrote a book on how to shoot all the 5 major sports, baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey, boxing, from every camera position, as along with all the different job responsibilities within the television community.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wow. That's highly specialized information.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah,
What,
that would be like me writing a book on how to construct a complete insurance and risk management program for an organization with 25 different operating entities or something. Unless you want to get into that, it sounds like absolutely horrendous. But the reason I ask is I have 2 boys who are both in TV production as part of their curriculum in high school right now. And I'm looking. I don't necessarily want to push them into sports. I want to push them into something that can selfishly help me in some way, shape, or form. But I mean, that would be interesting. I think they would probably really enjoy reading that stuff. So I'll make sure that what's the name of your book so I can write it down and make sure I pick them up a copy.
Oh, I can send it to you. It's the broadcast sports course. It's only available if you take the course, but I could send you a copy. It's 20 years worth of information, and it's in digital form because we wanted people, especially younger people, when they're on the job site, to be able to reference back. If I'm doing this camera on this position at this location in this sport, what are my key responsibilities? And sports, shooting TV sports is a formula. Each sporting event is a formula and how it's shot. And in football, what camera you're doing and what your responsibilities are where is the ball and which direction of the field is the ball going, and your responsibilities change. Same with baseball. If there's a runner on first or second and there's 1 out versus a right-handed batter or a left-handed batter, or if there's 2 outs, your responsibilities completely change.
Some you would have I've never thought about that in my life.
No,
Right.
I mean, it makes sense because if you're playing baseball and there's a right or left-handed batter up and a runner in a certain position, you have to change your fielding.
Totally
position
makes
too.
sense.
Yeah.
But you don't think about that,
No.
right? I would never have thought of that.
Well, there's no time for the director to say, camera 1, do this, camera 2, do this. So everyone knows that when there's a right-handed batter up, the camera at low first is going to shoot the right-handed batter to get the head, the medium chest shot for the lower third graphic, or it's taken from center field. And every time, the ball's hit in the air, they're going to go to high home, camera 2, to watch the play. So,
right.
And all the scoring usually happens off low first, which is the camera at the first base dugout to watch the runner round third and cross home.
Fascinating stuff, man. What have we not touched on that you wanted to talk about?
I was going to say, I can't even imagine the amount of preparation that you have to have. I mean, and just the constant beating it into your head to know where you're supposed to be and when you're supposed to be there.
And the storylines, right? Because you're listening to the announcers, and the announcers are telling stories, so you want your pictures to match the stories that the announcers are telling. So you need to know that on the away team, that, you know, the star player on the away team is number whatever, right? You need to know all that stuff before the game starts. And we have little cheat sheets, you know, especially for football. They're called 3 deeps. Because obviously there's a bunch of people at each position, but and there's a lot to know, and little pictures of coaches that are in the booth, you know, a mile away, so things like that. But just being prepared is key.
I can only imagine. So what have we missed? What do you want to talk about that we haven't brought up yet?
I think we've talked about a ton. It's been great.
Yeah, I know. I'm just, my mind is spinning because I could go for hours talking about this, but I don't know that everybody wants to listen to me ask you a bunch of questions selfishly, because I'm filing it away, man. I mean, having played sports as has Kyle, and just knowing what we know about what we had to do, you never think about any of the other stuff, man. And I mean, I think there's probably a life lesson in there somewhere too that goes back to the whole, you never know how much worse somebody has it than you do, right?
Right.
The guy shooting the camera on the sidelines of a football game, or even a baseball game that has to worry about taking a liner off the head and doing a backflip into the dugout, like, that's a bad day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I do a lot of horse racing. I've done 20 Kentucky Derbies, and the number one thing and I'm always operating a wireless camera, and the biggest fear is being kicked by a horse. And I've come within, 2 feet of a horse. That's how close we get to them. And, the thoroughbreds are very skittish animals, and that's a very precarious,
muscular hindquarters.
Yeah.
Yes. And it could kill you. So we're put in dangerous positions and places. So safety is always been paramount in the back of my mind.
Yeah, because again, you're distracted, man. You're distracted, not necessarily distracted, but you're focused on what you're doing, and anything else is a distraction to you. So you're trying to stay laser focused to make sure you're where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, shooting exactly what you're supposed to.
Exactly.
So many things could happen. Well, listen, man, I want to wrap up. I feel like we've probably covered everything we need to. I appreciate you coming on. This has really been really interesting to hear what you have to say. Your course. Talk about your course again, because you never know who's listening in our audience, and I don't want to.
It's the broadcast sports course, and we give it a few times a year. We train. It's a 2-day in-person boot camp with a 6-month after-the-fact training, teaching young people how to get in and to the broadcast sports industry and give them the tools that they need to be successful. We teach them who the clients are, how to communicate with clients, how to send emails that work, and how to show up and give 150% every time. And that's it.
Okay, cool deal. So where do they find that? Is it on a website?
All of our companies have, we're all linked back to the same family group website, HowieZales.com. You can find our podcast there. You can find our live stream and content delivery network information there. And, of course, the broadcast sports course.
Good deal. So for everybody listening to this, we will have a link to that in the show notes for HowieZales.com. Howie, thank you so much for coming on today. Truly a pleasure getting to know you. Wish you nothing but the best in the future, and look forward to following what you're doing, man. You got a fan.
Thank you, guys.
Good deal.
You've been listening to the Power Producers Podcast. You can follow Killing Commercial Insurance on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our book, The Extra 2 Minutes, and our website, killingcommercial.com.